All right, I'm Mark Stoddard. We're talking today about the Proforma, and I have with us Jack and Samantha, Jody, and Austin to be our stand-ins for other students, and ask them to uh, pin my ears to the wall to make sure I'm explaining the Proforma very carefully and very precisely, so that when you're finished watching this, as you've taken notes, as you've worked it through, you'll be able to create a pro forma. Let me first of all start with the whole nature of the pro forma. I like to use historic books, whether they be scriptures to some people or just historic books to others. But I think they tell you something about um, the things we're talking about, how long they've been doing it. And that's sometimes a very good indication we ought to pay attention to. I like to start off with something from the New Testament by Luke, who's quoting Jesus when he said, "For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it?" Which, yeah, that's one of those simple things. It's, why would you start a business unless you've counted the cost exactly to find out if you're going to make a profit? And not only make a profit, but which way of running the business, which way of counting the cost, which items should we put in here to make sure that we're going to, in this scenario, make a profit. But perhaps if we change the terms a little, in other words, instead of being open 5 days a week, we're open 7 days a week. The question is how much am I making? And by opening 7 days a week, will the number of people be depressed on those certain days? And that even if I'm open only 4 days a week, I'm actually making more money than if I was open 7. How will you know that unless you count the costs? And that's what a pro forma lets you do easily. So there's another scripture that says God is talking about the creation. He says, "I created all things of which I have spoken spiritually before they were naturally upon the face of the earth." It's the same idea. You guys are creating the pro forma so that you can have it in theory before you have to do it in practice. And the one thing that you'll find when you start talking to business owners all over the globe, is the spreadsheet has changed their businesses dramatically, because now they can count the costs and try different things before they actually start their business, and then use a pro forma to manage their business, so that in the future, as they want to try something different, they can again go back to their pro forma, and all the work's already been done, so there's very little that has to be done. I'm going to stop right there for a second and ask you guys, does this make sense? What else have you heard about pro formas, experience with them, anything whatsoever?
Makes sense to me.
Please, Austin, go ahead.
I just said it makes sense to me.
Why?
Well, it's just, well, like you said, if you start trying to do a business and you don't have enough money to actually get it up off the ground and survive the first few months of unprofitability, and don't go through and dot your I's and cross your T's, then you're definitely not going to be able to succeed.
Yeah. What else can you use a pro forma for in your business?
I would say if you're trying to move to a different program or system in the business. So if you're all online right now and you want to see if an actual brick and mortar store would be something viable for your business, you could do a pro forma to see, is rent, utilities, and all that something I can actually afford, or should you just stay online?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What else? How about if you need, go ahead, Samantha.
I think that the majority of changes that you're going to do in a business, you can kind of use your pro forma to really kind of like calculate what those implications are for your business. So
Yes.
even like situations that may occur, or what would happen if, you know, the economy went down and we had to pay this much instead of this much, or you can run situations to help you prepare for those.
And here's the thing, once you've done your first pro forma for your business, it's now down there, and it may take you many hours to create that first pro forma. But once you've done it, you've done it. Now you can do what you're talking about, Sam, you're talking about, Jack, is now you can easily go back to your assumptions that aren't going to change. There's still 7 days in a week. And there's other things that are absolutes. And you can quickly, and what I'm going to teach you today is how to create the pro forma so it is easily manipulated later. There's one more function of the pro forma that is absolutely huge. There's other reasons, but this is absolutely huge. You may decide to raise money for your business, and you absolutely have to have a pro forma before any investor will take you seriously. If you do not have a pro forma, they will simply say, come back when you have one. So we're going to show you how to do that. I basically have boiled it down. At one time I had 7, I've expanded it to 10, but 10 fairly simple rules for creating a pro forma. And I want to go through a couple of them first before we go to an actual pro forma sheet and start building it, because we're going to do that. But the first thing is, do not get somebody else to do your pro forma. And I mean people like your accountant. And he or she may say, you know what, I really know how to do them. You say, no, no, no. I have to do them because I have to know what the numbers are. And particularly if you're going for an investor, they have to be able to say, okay, how did you come up with that number? And right off the top of your head, instantly, you can tell them because you created it. And because you created it, it's all up there. And there's something magical that happens when you look somebody in the square in the eye and they've just asked you a tough financial question. And in 3 seconds, you're starting to give them the answer that's precisely accurate. What happens in their brain? Jody, I ask you that. What happens in the brain of that investor?
Well, if they see that you actually know what you're doing and you're prepared and you can actually answer the hard questions, they're definitely going to invest in you. They're not going to be as worried that they wouldn't get their investment back, their money back. So I think you'd be kind of like solid in getting the investor's attention, and then their money.
Absolutely. And here's the fun thing. They may ask you a second time, and if you answer a second time the way you did the first, will there be a third time? Not likely. Because once you've proven that you know what the heck you're doing, you've given them confidence, they're going to accept your numbers. And that's great. That's a great feeling to know you're that prepared and you have the confidence of your investors, your partner, your employees, other kinds of people as you're talking. And that's why the CEO, the person who owns the business, the number one person, is the one that creates the pro forma. You will get information and input from other people. For heaven's sakes, if you have a staff, you ought to put them to work finding out a lot of the information. But you're going to synthesize it, put it together, and create it. Okay? Any questions about that? Okay. When you're doing that, you're going to create, and I'm going to share the screen now. You're going to create a one-page summary sheet. Let me make this a little smaller so you can see it. That's a little too small. Okay, here you can see Flora's Gourmet Hot Chocolates. By the way, I'm using Proformas that my students have created in the past. And one of the reasons I do that is to assure you that you're perfectly capable of doing it. These are these extraordinary students? Well, all of my students are extraordinary, you know, that's what it is. But they're just like you, and they are able to put it together, and you can too. When I first started teaching Proformas at the university, I was told by some professors that this was MBA material. That save this for the MBA. Our students aren't prepared to be able to do this. And I couldn't believe that was true. And so I tried it out on the students. And I think the fact that I told them that other professors said they weren't bright enough to do it just kind of got them going and said, oh, you want to bet? I can do this. So you can see here that we have the first page or the summary sheet of the Proforma. Many people will simply refer to this as the Proforma, and they're right. It's laying it all out there. By the way, Proforma you will find spelled two different ways. Sometimes capital P-R-O space capital F-O-R-M-A, and sometimes it's just done as one word. I've kind of prefer it as one word, but it's okay. As you look here, you can see the 5 years are laid out very nicely. And we're going to go through all this in detail. Some of the things you should know about it is I want you to look up here and you'll see the bar up here. It says salaries, taxes, and benefits. And if you look at each one of these cells, they have formulas in them, except insurance, I see. So they messed up on a couple of these, but it's a no-no on your summary sheet to have any what I call original numbers. 3,000 is an original number. What does 3,000 mean? Just 3,000. Has no meaning other than it's a number. And the rest of these will be formulas that you're able to pull in from other subsheets that we'll talk about in a second. So I just wanted you to see what the one-page Proforma works on. You notice we're dividing income on the top from expenses on the bottom, concluding with EBITDA. Everybody know what EBITDA is? Somebody give it to me. What's EBITDA? EBITDA. Anybody know? Okay, it's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Many people get really screwed up with this because they'll list this and then they'll start putting down taxes that they think will be there, any depreciation. No, forget all that stuff. That's an accounting thing you'll discuss later. It'll come into play elsewhere, but for the purpose of the Proforma, leave it off. You want to end with the EBITDA, unless you're going after an investor, and then you can start discussing return on investment. Does anybody have any questions on that? And I'm going to stop that sharing for a second. Do you have any questions on that first sheet? Okay, I think as we go through, it'll become more readily understandable. Let's look at this once again, and we're going to create for ourselves right here. We're going to create our own spreadsheet that for a food truck. Okay, for a food truck. Let me go ahead and create a new one, and we're going to I'll start sharing it again. Okay, you'll notice, okay, up here, obviously this is going to be a food truck Proforma, and I like to make sure I have the year at least in there, so I know when I've created it, so I can go back to it. I do like to make that one as big as possible and bold, because that's my header. Then we're going to divide this into two exercises. One is income, and the other one we'll go ahead and put down for right now, expenses. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the year. Now, the question is should I put 2021 or should I put year one? What do you guys think? Jack, what do you think?
I would say year
Savannah,
one.
I mean, Samantha, you were talking. Go ahead.
Probably year one, so that you can work on getting everything set up before, and it kind of depends on when you're able to start, right? Because you don't have to necessarily start January 1st, right? So you
Right.
do.
Yeah, that's an important idea because you all saw what I did there. I was able to take the year one and go to the little black box on this and just drag it across 5 years, and it just fills it in for me. That little black box is one of two very important symbols that you need to work with, and we'll come back to the second one in a second. But one of the reasons for the year one, year two, or three, four, when you're talking to investors, they will say, well, when does year one begin? And I always say, as soon as you invest, then we have the money to go out and do the project. And they seem to enjoy that. So we're going to put year 1 through 5, precisely for what Samantha was saying, for the same reasons. Okay, let's talk for a second about the potential. Let's put flesh this out a little bit. And what are the potential income sources that you'll have for a food truck?
Food
Somebody,
sales.
Austin, say it loud.
Food sales.
Okay, here's one of the things you're going to find with your income section is you want to have as many, the more items you have under income, the more impressive it is for an investor, but it also for you, it helps to remind you the various real sources of income and how to keep track of them. For example, you may talk about drinks, and you may have combo dinners, and you may have individual meals. And what's the other one I just threw in? Oh yeah, you may start a catering part out of it. So that's a nice number there. Sometimes you won't have that many. Don't go phony on it, but break it up if you possibly can. So those are the income. And then we're going to have now a area here. We're going to have a subtotal of that's gross income. And now what might we do? You don't have to, but many people have used it this way. We're going to come cost of goods. What are the actual cost of goods against those products? I'm going to show you a pro forma that doesn't have cost of goods because it's a royalty company, and it gathers royalties. and it has various kinds of fees it charges. And the only thing they have that go against it is their management, their accounting, lawyer fees, and that way. So there's not really cost of goods. So make that determination. And after cost of goods, we have, what's the correct term? What do we have now, money-wise?
Net income.
Thank you. Now we have net income. Now we're going to drag this down because we don't want them too close together. Now we're going to be doing the expenses, and let's go ahead and let's do some categories of expenses that we might have, and I'll put one down here as operations, and that could be you might want to break that down into as well as far as hourly wages, salaried. You can, I would not put benefits here. Some people do. And give me some other expenses that you're going to have besides the cost of goods when you're going to do a food truck.
Insurance on the vehicle.
Insurance. Keep going.
Gas, maintenance on the vehicle.
What did you say, Austin?
Is that maintenance on the vehicle?
Ah, maintenance. Now you guys are leaving off one important word that you both said. How about the truck?
Vehicle itself, the truck.
Yeah, what do we call that? Those are capital expenses. By the way, I'm going to move this over. Some other things. I'm going to put down here emergency supplies. It could be some of the things you're already buying up above, but maybe you need a cache of them. What else? Marketing. Okay, so that's some of the items you're going to have. And now we have here a subtotal, expenses. And what do we have here? EBITDA. Now I like to break this up because I'm going to have investors looking at it. I'm going to have staff looking at it, and I'm going to doll this up a little bit. And I'm going to do such things as giving my years and the color, and I'm probably going to do my income might come in a different color of green, and maybe my expenses I'm going to have as red. You make that decision how colorful you want to get on this. But you're trying to make it so when anybody looks at it, they can quickly see it. And maybe we're going to go here with a brighter green that way. So they look at it. It's divisible. We can go for it. Now, what we're not going to do here is we are not going to fill in any of these cells right now. That's going to come next. Let me just go ahead and make sure all my borders are in there. Do you have any questions so far? Working out? Okay. So you've got all these general categories. Oh, an important point. Go ahead and put them up there. Don't try to wait until you've got every possible item. Just stick the ones up there you can think off the top of your head. Because as you start developing this company in your brain, you're going to go, oh, I need to put something else there. And for this business, it might be different than for another business. So don't worry about it. Just do a quick data dump of the ones you can think of, and you'll get back to it, and it'll become apparent, I need that. And that's easy enough. You all know how to do a spreadsheets well enough that you can figure that. Now, one of the things I like to do is I may turn around. Oh, I'm gonna push this guy over so we can see him a little easier too. But let's just put some numbers in there to make sure that I'm doing it right. I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to put that in there. These are just silly numbers. You'll see what I'm doing in a second. So I want to get the formulas in right away. So I will first of all, and I'll put the summation there, and then I will subtract them. So we can just see what is going to be, and again the same thing here, and do the summation. And now what do I put here is net income minus total expenses. Okay, that's fine. And I must tell you, the first year, anytime I see a pro forma that shows the person making a profit the first year, I know a couple things. One is they probably don't know what they're doing. Two, they're probably so head in the clouds positive, they haven't really thought this thing through, which is sort of like the first one, because you don't make money your first year. Even though somebody says, but I've got everything considered. Good. Go back and redo your expenses so you don't make money the first year, because no investor is going to believe you. So, but we're not worried about that here just yet. That's just a general point.
Quick question for you, Mark.
Please.
Would you have anything to include like investment money or loans or anything like that? Like any?
It's a very good question. I'm glad you said that, because I'm leaving off a very important statement for an investor. If an investor sees you're making money the first year, their question is, so what do you need me for? You say that, well, the reason I have a -6 is because I'm going to raise a +7 from you. And then we're going to have enough money to operate on. So when we get to the next year, we're going to be making money because we primed the pump.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, see, you've got the formula in here, and then you're just simply going to take this and spread it across, and then you'll fill these in later, and the formulas will already be there, ready to go for you. And this one, the same thing. Okay, now that's kind of how your pro forma sheet begins. Now, Austin, you've done these before, right?
Yeah.
You had a class from me where you is there anything else we should tell them about that first sheet?
Nothing that I can think of right now.
That's fine. It's not a problem. Okay, so that's that's our main pro forma summary, and eventually we're going to put it into a business plan so somebody can see this sheet. It's important. This sheet is all an investor or a banker or for your employees, for the most part, are going to see. It's the summary. If they would like to see other sheets, that's no problem. But they've got to understand that this first sheet is pretty, and we make it so it's interesting and easy to read. Because now we're going to come in and create what I call sub-sheets. Now we're going to call this number 2. From here, we're going to be creating a whole lot of sub-sheets, depending on what you need. And again, creating all that you need, and the conclusions from that, let's say the conclusion here is 12. All right. whatever it is. What we're going to do is we're going to come back and lay operations. This is an operation sheet. We're going to go equals. We're going to come to subsheet. We're going to hit the 12 and hit return. And it's going to bring it forward. And we're going to do that same exercise in every spreadsheet where there's a conclusion reached financially that we need to put on the pro forma summary. They're all going to go on that. That's why all of these numbers will be replaced with a formula. When you look at that, you see how that's the formula that came from the other sheet. And that's the only way you have to worry about doing it. Just hit the equal sign here, come over and get it, and you're done with it. Okay, that's the purpose. Now let's talk about the naming of it. So we're going to start putting together our expenses. And so which expense would you guys like to do first? Let's do what? Go ahead.
Do capital expenses.
All right, that's a good one. All right, so we're going to call this one first capital expenses. All right. Let's have another sheet. Let's do employees. Well, another way of saying it is labor. Doesn't take as long. Give me another one.
Operational expenses.
Ops. How about food? Is there something we're missing? Okay, let's go back to ops. What are you going to put in ops? Give me some examples of ops. How about insurance and maintenance? So what you're going to do is you're going to just type up here whatever you can think of that's going to go into operations, and it could be overhead, which is also called G&A, which is general and administrative. So, and we're just collecting the names there. Here's the point about these spreadsheets. These are for nobody else's eyes but your own. And they can be as messy as you like. They can be as disorganized seemingly as it can be, because you're going to do just what I'm doing here is you're going to start writing some stuff. And so you're over here, you may say, well, I'm going to deal with the insurance first. And you're going to start, it's called, maybe, perhaps you're going to have a couple of them. Key man. Anybody heard of key man insurance? It means, let's say one company we had an inventor and everything was up in his head. Well, he was the key man. And so we took out a $3 million policy on him called key man insurance, so that if he died, the company got something, which is $3 million. Towards the end of that company, he said, gee, I'm worth more dead than alive. So he said, no, we're just with that. That's key man insurance. But there's also, suddenly forgotten the term, liability. You might have liability insurance. You might have health insurance. Whatever you're going to do, you start putting the categories there. Now, let's say the key man insurance is going to cost me on an annual basis. Well, let's do it on a monthly basis so I can illustrate another point. Key man insurance, we find out has, they quote an annual figure of, let's say, $70,000. Well, no, let me go back. Let's do it the other way. Let's say it's $2,000 and it's per month. Okay. Now, what I want to have here, this is monthly, and I want to have an annual amount. How do I write the formula for this annual amount? Who would like to hit that one?
Just multiply the monthly amount by 12
Okay, so I should write in here, I should,
equals the cell next to it
okay,
times 12.
times 12. Okay. I'm so glad you said that, Jack, because that's wrong.
No.
And here's why. Here's why. It's a very important thing. Suppose we're going to come down here and we've got liability at $1,000 and we've got health at 5,000, right? And suppose we had 20 of these numbers, okay? 20 of these numbers going all the way down of all kinds of stuff. In fact, I think we'll drag this down and let it create all kinds of stuff there. All right, so you got all kinds of crazy figures going on there. And you copied this same thing and you pulled it down. What's happening here? Yeah, so this is all cool. That's great. That's great. But suppose instead of doing it's the amount is, that's not really the amount. The amount is actually on a quarterly basis. And you just found out you've made it wrong. What do you now have to do? I've got to go through and change every one of these to 4, right? And I'm going to work my way down the list. But they could be spread all over the place on your subsheet. And what are the chances you're going to miss one? A whole bunch. And what are the chances the one you miss is the one that kills your company? Very good. So here's what you do instead. You come up here, and you may move it later, but you come up here and put the number 12. That's what we call an original number, okay? I think I mentioned this before. That's all it means is 12. Has no other meaning. And we're going to give some definition to it. This is months, so 12 months. So what we're going to then do is say equals, Jack, you want to finish the formula?
We'll just choose that other number, this cell, yeah, and then up into the K cell where you have 12.
Yeah. What am I going to do now to make sure that is a constant, repeated? This 12 is going to be repeated everywhere. Anybody know that keystroke? What is it?
That put dollar signs in between the K and the 1.
Exactly. So we're going to go, there it is. On mine, my computer, it's an F4.
Yeah,
Sometimes
it's F4.
It's an Alt 4. Various other computers do it. Let me just ask each one of you, does yours do it differently than an Alt 4 or a F4? Your
F4.
computer? Austin, what does yours do?
F4.
Just a straight F4. Jody, do you know on yours? No?
I really don't know.
How about Sam? What about yours? Do you know?
I'm not
Jack,
sure.
you know?
Mine does. Yeah, mine works.
Okay, so you guys want to find that out when you're going through this, and everybody else find out what allows you to put the dollar sign in there. That holds it constant. So we're going to hit return, and now watch what happens, Jack, when we pull down there. Everything is perfect. They're all referring back to here, but we found out, it's on a 4-month basis. I have to hit it one time, everything has changed.
Wow.
And then you'd retitle it from monthly to quarterly.
Exactly. But see how easy that was? That just saved you a ton of time and a lot of mistakes. Somebody had a question? No? Okay. I don't want to stifle any questions, so we'll continue on with that. So this has given us a chance to talk about one of the really important things to do is learn how to what to do with an original number. And that is, an original number always must be by itself in a cell. You don't want to have any cells that have a formula and an original number. And here, this is the case. What we have is we have perfectly two formulas. Everybody see that? The I-13 times K1 that's held constant. So you never want to put an original number in with a formula. Any debates on that? It's okay. All right. Okay. Let's stop that for a second. So we got our insurance here and we want to do maintenance. We can start maintenance over here. And I'm not going to go through everything, but you're going to perhaps you write down how many trucks you have. And here we go again, Jack. How many trucks do we have? Say we have 2. That now becomes something that can be used to multiply against, because we're gonna work out here what our maintenance schedule and our costs and everything else, and we're going to be able to multiply it by 2, and we're going to get a conclusion. And what are we going to do with that conclusion? I'm going to kill these, and we're going to, this was what our annual, this is our annual expense that we're saying. And what are we going to do with this? Let's say this is the conclusion number. In fact, that doesn't make sense. I'll use it in something else. Okay, any questions about this? Again, make it up, move it around, don't worry about it. Okay. I want to cover some general principles, and then I want to be able to go through a couple of spreadsheets where somebody else has put it together and we can analyze it from there. Let me also mention with original numbers. See that we've got that original number there of 4 quarters. You guys are really smart, and you will remember maybe 2 months from now, maybe 6 months from now, where it was decided that you had to deal in 4 quarters. But there's an old saying, a dull pencil is better than a sharp mind, because a dull pencil keeps it there forever and your mind may forget it. You need to know where you got the information on the 4 quarters, that it's going to be done in 4 quarters. And so you're going to do it with Fireman's Insurance Company. And then you're going to give a link wherever you got it from. Put the link in there. And when you're finished, it stays there. And 6 months from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, you know where it came up with that 4 quarters. Don't miss out on that. So that's the rule of another rule for original numbers, is you've got to make sure that every original number has an annotation. Everybody know what an annotation is? Don't be afraid to say, no, I don't know what it means. Somebody explain what an annotation is. Don't you hate it when a teacher says, how many of you know what an annotation is? Anybody not know what it is? And nobody raises their hand. Then he calls on you and you don't know it. So let's say, who's going to tell me what the word annotation means? Jack?
It's just a note of explanation that you add into the text. Like, it's just something a little note that explains why it's there. So like your Fireman's Insurance Company link, it's just noting why it's in 4 quarters.
And you use the same thing when you're writing a research paper. You put a footnote with an annotation that tells where you got that from and why it's important, or if you want to give more information down there. That's what an annotation is. Don't shortchange yourself on the annotation. Okay. Do you all understand how this works? So we're saying that on our sheet 1, which needs to be labeled summary, we're coming here to insurance, and it's equal. Well, in fact, why don't you guys take me through it? Who wants to do that? How am I going to get that insurance number over here? Who's going to be my victim? Sam, you want to try it?
Yeah, so if you go back to the page we were on, I believe it was on the capital expenses or the ops.
Okay, that's ops.
It was on ops. Yeah, so we can go to the insurance one, and eventually we should probably have a subtotal at the bottom.
We're going to call that our subtotal.
Okay, that one. So I'd take that one, and I would actually, we should have put equal on the other box before.
There you go. I didn't want to catch on. I didn't want you to do it. Equals.
Yeah. And then we'll go grab the other number, and we'll have it go over to the other sheet.
What do I do to do that?
I'm not sure.
Just hit enter.
Hit enter.
Okay,
That's it.
nice.
And there it is. And now you've taken your total for insurance that you can go back and you know exactly where the number came from. And there it is. Okay. So I'm trying to make sure I've got everything in here that we need to make sure you talk about. Oh, one of the things I will do, and people will do this into various degrees, they will come up here, and when they've kind of completed this and overhead and G&A, let's say it's down here someplace. So we've taken care of all of this, and they're saying, well, I better do a summary here, and we're going to call this a table of assumptions. Okay, and we're going to move over here something that says insurance payments. And we're going to assume, and we'll make this a little bit bigger, and we're going to assume that we take this exact stuff we had here, and now we move it right to there. Okay, and then you have your other assumptions in there. And what I like to do at that point is I like to color code this just with a simple one, and maybe I'll put a box around it. So it's by itself, and I can look up here and see what all my assumptions are. And of course, they don't disappear anywhere. They all relate to where you were. So you gather all your assumptions and put them in one box. It kind of cleans things up and makes it so you can challenge all of your assumptions easier. They're not stuck here or there. They're all in one place. Okay. Any questions so far? Let's see. I think we've talked about the key strokes that are important. Okay. Let's now go to an example of somebody else that's done it. We have Flores here. And if you look, she has her salaries, her taxes, she spread it out. And again, you can look at this in more detail when you have the recording. The capital expenditures, fairly simple, that she has here, and they can be as simple or as complicated as your business needs to be. And she's got a little more complicated hourly chart because she's going to be open during these time periods, and she's got to calculate how many people need to come in, how many hours they need to spend, what they need to do, and she's able to do it. So that's one with the well, with hers. And let me give you another one. There, Mitch's. Let's go with Mitch's. And here's Mitch has a Burger Express, and he's got a lot more numbers in here. And he's got his capital expenditures up front. There's a lot of ways to do this. I'm giving you some general guidelines, but as you create the pro forma, you're going to be changing things a little bit to fit your business. One of the things he did is he showed that his annual growth in expenses is based on a 6% inflation rate. So whatever they were, he added 6% on so the person could see it. Now, I got to show you what he did the first time. Well, we went back and corrected. I'm just going to show you a number he had up there, imaginary one, 0.60. And it was a dollar sign, so that number. And so all of these numbers had the same basic presentation. What's the problem with that? Is if you put all of these, in fact, we can go ahead and do it here. If we put all of these, yeah. Notice the difference? Is there a problem with that versus the other way? Let's do the other way. Go ahead, Austin.
I said it looks a lot less clean, and I don't know how much investors are really going to care if you make 97 cents or just, you know, an even dollar.
Yeah. On a yearly report, who cares about 97 cents? Okay. No, you don't use decimals on the summary sheet. You make sure you go through it and you just hit it. So, oops, wrong way, wrong direction. So that's what it looks like. Doesn't that look easier? Easier to read? So that's another one of the rules that are in our rules sheet that you should all have a copy of. They're all found in files. But the rule is no decimals on there, that first sheet. Okay, now there's another thing you'll notice that he's done. Notice he has year 1 through 5 up here, but he also has it down here. Make it easier on your investors. Make it easier on yourself to remember where you are. I wouldn't have any problem at all. In fact, I'm going to move this guy back up here where he was. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm simply going to go equals that, and I'm just going to spread that across. That way there's no question. I know which year I'm working with. Make it easier on yourself, make it easier on your readers. Okay, the one thing I wanted to show you here that Mitch did that was was good. Notice he's come up with, he's got the salaries are all in here. And then he's going to show what his assumptions are for taxes and benefits. And that's about correct. It does change, but about 23% is what you need to add on for taxes and benefits. Now, that's kind of a big number for a lot of people to adjust to. But, you know, we voted for the government that has said we want to protect everybody on everything, and we're going to protect them to the rate of 23%. And we get across the idea that, gee, if the government didn't take that out, I would have less. Well, the fact is they wouldn't pay you as much. But anyway, I don't want to get off on that. Any questions? But so you can see how he did his numbers. Notice these numbers. He's got his rate in there. They're all formula driven, but he came up with an hourly chart. And look at this hourly chart. This is something you need to do with your business, particularly, not all businesses, but particularly like a food truck. You need to spend the time showing, all right, typically on a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, I'm going to be open at 10, 11, whatever you're going to do. You got to show me how many customers you think you expect to come in during that time. And based upon the number of customers who come in, you're going to need a certain amount of employees. And so you're able to build that chart so that you can be able to determine how much you're going to need on each day of the week. And you're going to spread it out over 52 weeks. So a years of operation. Again, you're going to picture it in your mind. And I'm going to include more on holidays, less on some days, and you're going to spread it all out. That makes sense? Okay, let me just quickly summarize and go over this because we've shown you some examples. These examples are in your files, and if you're looking at this and don't have them, you can email me at marks@uvu.edu. But let me go through the points so we all understand them. The 10 rules. Number 1, do it yourself. And guys, gals, as I do this, you stop me if you have a question about these, okay? So number 1, do it yourself. Number 2, begin with a Proforma summary page. And this is for who? Who's this for? Jody? Who's the summary page for?
For the investor, or pretty much anybody who needs to see it aside from you.
Yeah, exactly right. Hello, little girl. So, yeah, that's exactly right. And you are going to put into the Proforma the various expense and income categories and EBITDA that we have shown you here. Number 3, use as many sub-sheets as you need. Don't scrimp and save on sub-sheets. If you need to have, as Mitch did, an hourly chart on a separate sub-sheet that flows into your actual employee wage chart, use it. But the sub-sheets are for who? Austin, who are the sub-sheets for?
For the business owner.
Business owner and somebody else if they really wanted. For the most part, they're not going to care, but they're for you to be able to do it so they can be as messy or disorganized as you like. Number 4, we've already talked about. Number 5, cells will either have original numbers or all formulas, but never original numbers and formulas. Does that make sense? Question with you. Okay.
Can you go over that one again? That one confuses me.
Let's do that. You notice right here, we have up here a formula. What you do not want to have is something here. Instead of referring to 11%, you decided to write in times 11%. Okay, that comes out fine, but when you go to use it for the next person, you may not do it in the correct place, and you may have to change it so it's no longer 11%. I mean, it's government. What's it going to do? It's going to go down? No, it's not going to go down. It's going to go to 13%. Well, you're going to have to go find every place where you put in the 11%. Instead, you're simply going to create over here a table of assumptions, and you put how much it's going to be. And so when you make this formula, you're going to have E3, let's go here, E3, which is salaries times 11%. And then you can copy that formula anywhere, and then you can change it instantly. Does that make sense? Jody, did that answer the question?
Yeah, it'll just take some practice to get down, but it makes a lot of sense. It makes it a lot easier.
Yes, yeah, and that's what we're trying to do is make sure that you can do that easier. The next one, all original numbers. What's an original number? 10, 3, 5, 1,000, whatever else. A number you just made up or whatever, whoever made it up. It's just a number, but all original numbers must have an annotation. Where did you get the number from? Record it there so you can later on go back and check it out. The next point is go back and to the various things you're doing and color code things for easy reference. Use bold, use other kinds of things so you can easily see your material so it's easy for you. The next is copy the link from the subsheet to the correct cell in the summary page. But as Samantha pointed out, that's the best way to say it, is when you're on your summary page, you hit the equal sign of where you want to put a number, you go find it on the subsheet and you grab it and hit return and you've got it. Number 9, on the summary page, I recommend using color codes again and bold codes to help your summary page easier and to use generic year rather than calendar year. Generic year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what you're going to do with that. The last thing is to make sure you learn in your spreadsheet all of the various little shortcuts, such as $ and the little black box. Those are 2 of the most common ones that you're able to use, and then it goes much faster. Okay, I hope, let me know right now if there are questions you have. And for those who are looking at the recording, don't hesitate to email me and let me know what questions you have. But the most important thing is take what we've given. I don't expect you to know it perfectly, and just start. Austin, the first time you did one of these, how long did it take you to create a spreadsheet?
I did like a kind of like a rough draft in just, like an hour or so. But then, like you said, the more you get into it, the more you realize the more that you need. And so you have to do a little bit more research into it. So overall, I'm not exactly sure how much time it took, but the first draft was only a little bit.
Yeah, and it's important just to do a little bit, get your feet into it. You're feeling okay. You're doing the right things. But let me give you a prediction. Let me give all of you a prediction. When it's about your own business, when it's you creating your business and thinking about it, you will spend hours. It is addictive because you're running your business on paper and you're starting to find out what the possibilities are. And when you start seeing that by charging this amount and we have this many sales and these are my expenses, I'm going to be able to make this amount, it is very addictive. And you got to understand, I'm not a numbers guy. I have a master's degree in English, for heaven's sakes. I'm the opposite of a numbers guy. But I've become very good at spreadsheets because I really love my businesses and I want to make sure they're going to make money before I start them. Any last words from our group of Jack, Samantha, Jody, and Austin?
I have a question. We're doing this on the business that we've been studying, correct? With our
That's
groups,
correct.
and
That's
not
correct.
just the generic food truck examples.
That's correct.
Okay.
We're just using the food truck as our guinea pig. So, any last questions before we sign off? Okay, I would hope that's clearer than mud and that you're able to now go out and try it and get back to me with any questions. Thank you all and have a good night.
Thanks, Mark.
Take care.
Thanks.
You